Kevin Bubba McCabe. It's a good Irish lad here. At K-Mac McCabe.
McCabe.
Hashtag Ask Jade. Not to be confused.
With McQuaid, obviously.
Hashtag Ask Jade. Who is the best coach in the NFL right now? That's a good question. You know, Tone has an AP vote for Coach of the Year. Is the best coach in the NFL and Coach of the Year the same person, Jade? And who would you say that is?
I mean, we kind of know about how the awards work. It's a little bit more of like a what's happening right now or who hasn't gotten in a while type thing. The best coach in the NFL is Andy Reid.
Why? Because they have the most wins, least amount of losses?
No, I don't think people appreciate how hard it is to do what they've done, not only over the last couple of years, but obviously this year, not being quite the same team, not having everything, but still being 12-1 and still being the best and finding different ways to win. I mean, he's gotten all of his guys to buy in to we are going to win how we have to, not how we want to. It's not going to be the most stylish. It's not going to be the most flashy. Not everybody's going to get all these crazy stats, but we are going to win games because this is what we have to do. They have I believe it's the longest amount of plays per drive during the Mahomes era, and they have the least amount of explosive plays during the Mahomes era. But they're just matriculating the ball down the field. Their defense is playing good, and Andy Reid has gotten everybody to buy into that. He's got the right coaches. He's just done such a great job.
All the while eating cheeseburgers.
Exactly.
We sent him a cheeseburger on National Cheeseburger Day. He said thank you. And he's, I think his players all love him. He is a attention to detail, accountability type coach too, right? Didn't you play for him?
Yeah, big time. He's all about dressing like you play in the game. So it's tight jerseys, tucking your shirts in. I mean, he does everything very detailed.
And they love him over there. God, they love him over there. How could you not if you win that much? They win all the time.
It's just so easy to overlook, obviously, because he has Patrick Mahomes. He has some of these great players. He got Spags as the coordinator, but you have to understand and respect how hard head coaching is in this league, and he's done a great job at it.
And Tobe is a special teams guy. I mean, you're talking about 3 Hall of Famers basically at coordinator positions. I think Tobe is situations guy too. I saw him telling Andy Reid a couple of things about a penalty or not taking a penalty time when they were doing it. Feels like they're all on the same page, rowing in the same direction, trying to accomplish something that's never been done. Are they going to be able to do it this year, Chiefs? From what you've seen, you think they're going to be able to win 3 straight here? Playoffs are tough, man. Playoffs, people will expose shit in the playoffs. I mean, that's just how it is. They've been the ones that have been exposing others over the last few years. Is that going to remain, or is there a chance that they run into somebody that's, humming at this?
Oh, I think there's no doubt there's a chance. This is the debate we had in the green room this week on CBS. Is we just keep going back
take
and
us
forth
in the green room.
Peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's just, is this the Chiefs where they figure it out as the season goes on, and then once the playoffs come, like they have that clutch gene. They just figure it out at the end of a game, whether it's a kick going off the crossbar, whether it's, finding a way, blocking a field goal. They just find a way. Are they going to do that again? Is it going to keep in the Chiefs? Or are they just patching it together and band-aiding it together week by week right now, and come the playoffs, somebody's going to come in and just take that all down? It obviously goes back and forth. I have no idea, but I think Pat, we're going to see on Saturday if he's healthy or not. Like, do you wait? Do you not wait? Do you let him get fully healthy, or do you play for that first round bye so then he's healthy later? There's a lot going on with these 3 games in 11 days.
Carson Wentz is the quarterback of the Chiefs. Be fun. I'll be excited to see what Andy Reid does with Carson Wentz. All right, you're going to break 4 tackles on this play. Need you to, because we got Xavier Worthy actually running. You see what he's running? This is the route he's running. It's a whoop-de-woo, they're calling it. Triple whoop-de-woo. So he'll be down here. All you got to do is break this tackle, spin around this guy, bounce off the ball here, pivot, find your footing. These guys should be exhausted. This is a 15-second play. Xavier Worthy will be in this corner waiting for you. That we're calling it Wentz.
There's only one guy who can do it.
You're the guy.
Get in there.
Good luck. There's a chance that happens, and there's a chance that Patrick Mahomes has proven time and time again.
What do you think?
Timelines mean nothing to this guy. Timelines mean absolutely nothing to this guy.
Wolverine blood. He'll be out there.
He does have Wolverine blood. And he also, I think, has this mentality, and potentially from his dad, because the way his dad played baseball, and I think the way he grew up, it's like, if you can play, you play. Like, what are we even talking about?
Do you think because Christmas is such a quick turnaround?
In my eyes, if I'm Patrick Mahomes, I am not. Very clearly.
Sure.
It'd be so cool, though. So cool. Gonna have to be tough, gonna have to handle a lot of things, but you're Patrick Mahomes. I don't play on Saturday. I play for Christmas.
Yeah.
But he has defied timelines literally every single year, seemingly, so I'm vastly different than he is.
I have a question for the guys in this group that obviously have played. ankle sprains. You guys have had them low, high, whatever it may be. There are two very distinct schools of thought on them that I've seen teammates and myself try both. I'm curious what you guys have tried. Obviously, you have the rest, ice, elevate, all that stuff. Put it in a boot,
Right.
don't move it. And then I've seen other people that 100% believe in wrapping it up, moving it, like wrapping it up in one of those stretchy bands, moving it around, flossing it, getting it in heat, trying to get stuff flowing through there. Which ones have you guys done? And which do you like?
I've done it, but I mean, I've done it a million times. I mean, once it goes down from being a giant club foot, then I think you got to move that thing around. It always felt better once you got out there and you actually played or you practiced on it. Like it felt like you loosened it up a little bit. So you got to hope it doesn't swell back up though once you do that.
Yeah, once you loosen it up and it starts feeling good, then it hurts more the next day. Now you're on a carousel with this ankle for the time. Have you ever, for a corner, that's a tough spot.
A lot, but I'm a big range of motion guy. It's fast, it's quickly. I got a band pumping. I'm like you said, if it is super swollen, you got to drain it maybe or get some of that fluid out of there. But I'm a big range of motion guy. I hate keeping it in the boot, keeping it wrapped up tight. I hate all that shit. But
you said rice?
Rice, yeah. What is it? Rest, ice.
Yeah, rest, ice,
compression, elevation.
Elevate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you heal?
Yeah, that's how you.
I thought you put it in rice like a foam.
Yeah, I thought you was trying to dry it out, trying to dehydrate your ankle.
Good.
Acronym.
Rest, ice, compression, elevate.
Elevate, yep.
How about you, AQ?
I think there's a combination of both. I think you have to start off with all the ice and try and get as much swelling out as you can. All the what's it called? Hivamat, all that stuff. Just kind of flush everything, push everything. But then, as the week goes, then we get on the field, we wrap it up, put all the whatever you want to call it, the floss stuff on there to kind of give all the stuff and get out on the field and get it moving.
Yeah, put all the stuff.
Get all the stuff on there.
I forget all the names now. That I'm done playing. I don't have to wrap anything up.
AJ, you remember John Simon?
Of course.
Yeah, he's the one he was the first one that I saw who he sprained his ankle very, very badly. And 30 seconds later, he had that floss and he just wrapped it around. He was moving it and he was in the training room and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like the trainers are coming over with an ice pack and he was like, "Get that shit away from me." He goes, "I got this." And he just wrapped it and was moving around, walking, like doing as much movement as humanly possible. And he literally was at practice the next day. And from that moment forward, I was like, "Well, I'm never icing my ankle again." Man.
So that sounds like that's who you are. You're Simon. You won with that.
I switched completely. Like this isn't medical advice for anybody. This is just what I did. I used to be the ice guy, like the stem, like all that type of stuff. I do believe in Hivamat. AQ is absolutely right on that. Hivamat gets all that swelling out. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I am now a wrap it up, move it, get that thing. I don't want it to stiffen up. I don't want it to be in a boot. I don't want it to be iced because as soon as it locks up, it's so difficult to unlock. Again, not medical advice, just what I did.
Sounds like.
Find some sand to walk on. If you can walk on some sand, man, that's the best rehab you can do for your ankle.
Because you have to strengthen your ankle while you're walking on sand because the instability, right? And that kind of
Oh yeah. All the little stabilizers and stuff when you think about all those uneven steps and push in. Yeah, I think walking on sand is the best.
That's why water too.
Yeah.
Like water, like the pools.
Water's
like
great.
Running, get the flexibility, all that.
Those treadmills at the bottom of pools, that's a good advancement in technology.
Those are sweet. Sick.
You felt really cool when you were using those. And then the side shot. Look at your gait here. You see, you're kind of, and then
you start to question yourself pretty heavily when you watch yourself walk. Man, you're like, geez, I walk weird. You ever do that?
Is that how I always look walking? Just so I know. Yeah, you're back to normal. Really? Yikes. That's what I look like normally? Yeah. All right. I'm happy to hear the knee's good, but we need to change some other things in my life.